Good evening. I'm Rick Wilson. This is The Breakdown. And for some reason, they've let me here totally unsupervised. Hey, folks, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on The Breakdown on LPN, the Lincoln Project Network. I wanted to welcome everybody here tonight. In a few minutes, I'm going to be joined by my bestie, Molly Jong-Fast. We are going to have a rip-roaring good time. Thank you so much for all the great comments in the chat. Folks, if you're watching for the first time, go ahead and click that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Okay, folks, I want to start out with the big news of the day. No Labels is out. They have ended their quixotic and I thought incredibly foolish and dangerous campaign to try to have a third-party spoiler running against Joe Biden in this effort. It would have only helped Donald Trump. They are out. They have pulled the plug. They approached over 30 candidates to run for this thing, and all of them who actually had political experience said, yeah, no, thanks, but no. So it is over. It is done. No Labels. This problem now becomes a lot more solvable. Now it is a matter of Trump versus Biden and RFK. RFK is sounding more and more like he's trying to steal votes from Donald Trump every day, which I am here for. He's now talking about the J6 activists having their rights taken away. So God bless. Maybe he's going to make a play for the MAGA base now, Donald. So with that, I just want to say again, No Labels pulling out of this thing. This was a cause that the Lincoln Project led the way on in 2023. We started warning people very early in the process just how dangerous it was. We were joined by a lot of other groups, a lot of great people in the pro-democracy movement who stood up and fought for this. I want to particularly from Lincoln give a shout out to Phil Germain and Greg Menchak, both of whom took point on so much No Labels content and communications this year and on really being smart about how we operate and go up against No Labels. I want to also shout out our friends over at Third Way, Matt Bennett and Lucas Holtz, both of whom were key parts of tearing apart the predicate and the statistics and all the fake polling of No Labels and showing how they couldn't win. We ran a couple of ads against No Labels over the course of the year. We're going to run one right now that we were particularly happy with because it really communicated what was going on behind the whole No Labels scam.
And everybody's talking about dark money.
The third-party group No Labels.
No Labels.
No Labels.
No Labels, a dark money front for corporate interests.
Dark money.
They're what we call dark money group.
It's not required to disclose where its funding comes from.
I've invited Nancy Jacobson to talk to me about who exactly they raise their money from, and she never says yes.
Why not reveal your donors?
First of all, we're not a party.
But you guys are registering as a party.
Can you tell us who's your major funder?
No Labels is a 501c4.
We have a legal entity that doesn't disclose contributions.
They could give out the information if they wanted to. They choose not to.
We do not disclose donors.
And anyone who's still taking them as well-intentioned do-gooders needs to look a little closer at the deep red intentions of their donors, their staff, and their plan.
If you added everything up, there's a distinct Republican tilt.
We're worried that there could come a moment that there's two unacceptable nominees from each party.
They say that Joe Biden is as extreme as Donald Trump.
We love you. You're very special.
So right there's a complete dishonesty. And then when they start hiding their sources of money, it can only raise suspicion.
They are funded by Republican billionaires, taking millions of dollars of Republican major donor money to elect Donald Trump for a second term.
In a two-way race, Joe Biden would beat Donald Trump 52-48. You throw No Labels in, suddenly Donald Trump wins.
By doing this, you're going to elevate Trump.
No Labels. That's right. I'm a believer.
Bye-bye. You're gone. Out. Look, I do want to say one thing about No Labels. There were a lot of people in the volunteer movement and who sort of followed No Labels and thought, these are do-gooders, these are nice people, these are the kind of moderate centrists who want to solve problems. And there were a lot of people drawn to it because of that. And maybe that's how it started. But the way it ended was that this was an organization that would have reelected Donald Trump. and it's a better thing for America. They are off the scene, and I'm proud of the work that Lincoln and many other groups did to do that. So with that, I want to welcome my bestie, my partner in many, many crimes, Molly Jong-Fast. As always, hello.
Let's not say crimes, shall we? I just feel like...
I like to think of it as mild criming.
Right. And nothing illegal has taken place here.
Yeah.
Just
tonight.
Just nothing illegal, let us just say. As
yet.
One of us who has corporate responsibilities, nothing illegal has taken place here.
I have corporate responsibilities too. Thank you very much. I'm on not one but two boards. Hey, so listen.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about tonight the fact that Republicans desperately want this campaign to be about crime and immigration, but everything they've done has turned this into an election that is going to be about women. You've written more than almost anybody and smarter than almost anybody on the unbelievable overreach that the Republicans are pulling right now on going after birth control, going after IVF, going after choice across the board, even though it's quite evidently hurting them politically. They just can't seem to stop themselves, can they?
You know, it's so interesting because clearly, I was thinking about it this morning because, you know, you're seeing Republicans making inroads into IVF, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want the Heritage Foundation, which is thought of as sort of like one of the larger Republican think tanks, is now saying, you know, we should be regulating IVF. There's no regulation, which is such an insane, right? IVF has largely been a very, very popular, nonpartisan kind of issue that had no, I mean, remember, Mother Pence did IVF, right?
Yep.
That like a more Christian IVF, but it was never held up as, you know, abortion was sort of a lightning rod in a way that IVF never was, but Republicans are trying to make it that, which I think is a real strategic error. Like if you had someone running this Republican Party, like you had a Nancy Pelosi, someone who was in there who knew what they were doing, they would say, stop. Like, stop it. This is terrible. Voters hate this. Just pretend you don't want to ban abortion. And then once you get in there, you can do whatever you want. And instead, what's happened is because the person really running the entire Republican Party right now is Donald Trump, and he is unfocused and disorganized in certain ways, even though his campaign is a much more professional operation than it's ever been. But, you know, the man is a little distracted, right? He has 91 criminal counts. He has, you know, endless civil trials. He's spending, you know, he spent $100 million on lawyers. And with great effect, right? I mean, he's only going to face one trial. The man has, the lawyers have worked, right? The lawyering has worked. But, and he really has, I think, largely avoided accountability, which would prove that the guardrails did, in fact, not hold. But okay. But yeah, but I think as you look at this situation, if there were someone in charge, if there were Nancy Pelosi, they would say, stop with the talk about the birth control.
Right.
Say you support a 15-week ban. Say you don't want any place to have it banned. Don't talk about the Comstock Act. And, you know,
and they cannot help it.
They cannot. And the Supreme Court has 2 abortion cases this year. 2, right? They said after they overturned Roe, they said, we're done with abortion now. We're kicking it back to the states. We're done. Just kidding, right? Just kidding.
JK, LOL, Fifth Circuit.
Right, LOL. So they had an abortion decision about the mifepristone pills, which basically is going to rule on standing, right? So you had this crazy justice in Texas, Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, who is the judge that everybody who's anti-choice wants to be in front of because he hates abortion and wants to end it. And he had this crazy idea that they should just be able to overturn FDA approval processes because why not? If you don't like what a drug does, maybe the FDA did the wrong thing approving it. And that is how we got here. But it got thrown out on standing. But you heard Thomas and Alito both talking about, and they didn't even say it by name because they know what they're doing is crazy. They said, what about 1357? And, you know, and that's the Comstock Act, an act from the 1800s, which prevents you from sending things abortaceous in the mail.
Right. So what we saw this week, though, were two states. One is already there. One is about to be there. In Florida, we are going to have one of the most well-crafted questions on choice that legally was so impossible that even the Florida Supreme Court couldn't stop it. And Ron DeSantis has named 5 of the 7 judges on the Florida Supreme Court. And even they couldn't stop it from hitting the ballot.
Aren't some of those judges up for re-election in this?
Yeah, but in Florida, it's called retention elections. And it's incredibly difficult to blow somebody off the ballot with a retention election. It's like, should Judge Smith be retained? Right. And people always vote yes. It's just behavioral. Believe me, we tried it like 20 different ways over the years. It doesn't work. But I think that is going to be a major shift. It's going to cost the Republicans. Look, they may not win. The Democrats may not win Florida because of it, but it's going to make the Republicans spend a lot of money. And Tiny Ronnie D in Tallahassee is out today. He's going to push this amendment against it as hard as he can. He's going to spend the party's money, making it a big issue. Donald Trump and his people are ripped out of their minds with anger right now because this is the last thing they wanted.
Explain this dynamic.
So they hate each other.
Right.
DeSantis wants to run for president in 28, or if Trump dies on the stump or whatever crazy thing happens, he wants to be the one who's the most pure with the social conservatives.
Right.
So even though it will be bad for Trump in the general election, DeSantis is now telling people that he wants to go out and be the lead campaigner against the choice amendment. He wants to go out and put it front and center, spend money against it, use the party to push against it, which the Trump people around him, who are not stupid people,
right?
They now understand that if they do this, it is going to make Trump have to go and be defensive in Florida and spend money in Florida that he wouldn't have had to spend otherwise. Again, he may not win Florida. Biden may not win Florida. He probably will not win Florida. But suddenly a very, very safe state has turned into a chaos state for the Republicans. And it looks like Arizona now has the signatures to put their choice amendment on the ballot as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point about now I'm looking at the comments. I forgot that there are comments. I'm not looking at the comments. I'm already so distractible I can't handle it. But then I think that's a really good point about this tension between DeSantis and Trump. For example, there's really no reason that DeSantis wants Trump to win. Right. It would be better for DeSantis if Trump loses.
100% correct. DeSantis wants. He knows he's already been thrown out of MAGA world.
Right.
They'll never let him back in the door. He's done. But he wants. If Trump is going to go down, DeSantis wants to be the guy who says, I stayed on the right side of this issue, no matter what the politics were, and to go into Iowa in 2028 and try to be the golden child. I think it's a crazy strategy because he's poisoned.
But he has no other choices.
No, he has no other choices. But he's also like the worst, terrible little sort of dwarf candidate now in the minds of everybody. He's disappeared completely from the MAGA-verse. So speaking of the MAGA-verse, I also, in the non-political space, in the MAGA media space, I think this week has just been a phenomenal excursion into what the MAGA thought leaders and influencers believe about women. Let's start with Charlie Kirk, who, as I like to say, is for women who find themselves too aroused by Ben Shapiro.
Young ladies present a great opportunity. They are... Not conservative.
What do you think that is?
Well, there's a couple reasons for this. Abortion is obviously part of it, but they've been sold a lie through culture, through media, through even some of their parents that you basically have to go pursue this corporate trajectory and that men are always the problem and suppress your biological impulses. A lot of them are on birth control too. And birth control like really screws up female brains, by the way. Every single one of you need to make sure that your loved ones are not on birth control. It is awful. It's terrible. And it creates very angry and bitter young ladies and young women. That bitterness then manifests into a political party that is the bitter party. I mean, the Democrat Party is all about bring us your bitterness and, we'll give you free stuff. It's like we'll trade you, bitterness for stuff, essentially. That's like the Democrat Party. So we have it is the least married young female generation in American history. We have more 30-something young women that are single than married. And they are by far the most reliable Democrat voting bloc, even more than black voters now. They vote 95% Democrat. If you are a 32-year-old young lady who went to college, who has a nice apartment, a corporate job, and cats, you're a Democrat voter. Right. And that we've basically told a great generation of young women, don't get married, don't have kids, go get a corporate job, and it's created mass political hysteria. And then in their early 30s, they get really upset because they say, the boys don't want to date me anymore because they're not at their prime. And people get mad when I say that. Well, it's just true. If you're in your early 30s, I'm sorry. It's like you're not as attractive in the dating pool as you were in the early 20s. But again, you have your corporate job and cats, so I thought and we're going to see this November. And Democrats know this. Democrats are very, very worried that young men are going to throw off so much of this reliable college campus voting demographic. So Gen Z men are going to be right-wing in historic ways.
Wow. So then how are we going to reach the young ladies? And then we'll get to some Q&A
I hate to oversimplify it. If they remain single, it's nearly impossible. And so until there is a mass movement to get young ladies, to encourage them to get married, they have a pathological attachment to the Democrat Party as long as they remain single, because they're able to be micro-targeted on fear, birth control, abortion, sovereignty. They only think about themselves. And so, I don't have any good answers for that. It's so bad, and the church plays into this, by the way, so much. The church needs to be pushing young people, if you're in a relationship, get married, and do not have sex before you get married, period. And then finally, the most depressed people in the country are young single women ages 26 to 32, yet they're rich and they went to college and they earn a lot of money. Turns out those things might not give you fulfillment. Once you have a family and you get married and start having kids, maybe that will fill the massive hole that, many of them are wondering why they're so miserable.
I honestly, incredible stuff.
I swear to God, if some donor just gave me $1 billion, I would make a supercut of that and run it 24 hours a day till election day.
As someone who got married when they were 23 and has been married for 20 years or 22 years, maybe I got married when I was 25. It is like just completely dumb. But it also is really interesting because, I've been talking about how Republicans are obsessed with going after birth control pills and how stupid that is, because people love birth control pills. And when and also it's nobody's fucking business what if you want to take birth control pills. But it is also just, was like one of the great innovations of this century was that women could control their fertility and control their hormones. And it was and the fact that Republicans have decided that this is somehow, and by the way, he's going after premarital sex. Good luck.
Good luck. Have fun with that one.
Yeah. Americans love that. I can't wait for him to go after porn next. You have no, it's like Charlie Kirk going after porn and not porn, in this case, premarital sex, is like is like Democrats saying, I'm going to take away all your guns.
It is so poisonous and so stupid and so unbelievably a train wreck. And especially because you've got Charlie Kirk carrying this message, a guy who just screams like, flounder human hybrid incel. It's just amazing. But
Charlie Kirk only exists because he didn't get into college.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't get into a fancy college, so he decided he was being discriminated against, as opposed to a normal person who doesn't get into college and says perhaps it was.
Maybe I should work harder. Weird. But he's not the only one in the MAGA thought leader world who is laying out very clearly how they feel about women. Let's go next to Scabby Steve Bannon, a guy who most women when they see him coming down the street, are like getting the mace out of their purse or calling 911. So let's roll, Steve.
So they can come in and they do. All the consultants, they try to modify Trump's message. Oh, no, you got to modify it here on the social conservative. You got to do this, you got to do that because you got to get the suburban women. Well, says who? Says who? The ones that are gettable are out there that can listen to the message of MAGA and the message of President Trump.
Brilliant. I love it.
I love it. I think he should absolutely keep that one up.
Well, the idea that, and again, this is this Trump thing that he's had since the beginning, which is that he doesn't need to grow the electorate, right? This is the one president we've ever had who, he gave his inauguration speech and it was basically like, for those of you who voted for me, congratulations, and everyone else can go.
Right. And look, there's a strategy in politics where you can look at your electorate and say, I either need to win my base, and that's enough, or you need to do base plus. Successful presidents run and they get their base and some votes on the other side. And that, if you go back and look at the last few successful presidents, George W. Bush got his base plus some conservative Democrats. Barack Obama got his base plus some suburban Republicans, and so on and so on. They now believe that they have enough turnout among crazy MAGA, QAnoners, and weirdos that Steve Bannon's just taken to calling suburban women Karens and saying we don't need them. Math is like neither one of us is like a math person, but the math in my mind here doesn't work that well.
The whole idea that you're going to sort of get rid of half of the population of America so early on seems like a mistake to me. But what do I know?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and I think with Steve, I think with Bannon in particular, his idea probably nestles into something he's not talking about, and that is that he believes in this kind of alt-right, like women back in the kitchen and birthing babies philosophy in a much more explicit way, even than like the elliptical, we're going to take away birth control and women will therefore get pregnant and be back in the kitchen. Bannon, I think, has a much weirder, like Dugin inflected from Russia, like women should be breeding, that will put them in their place and then they'll calm down. It kind of runs up against, I don't know, several thousand years of human history, but I'm fascinated by how he is still sort of validating, he's validating Trump's bad behavior, because Trump is equally terrible with women at every possible dimension. It hardly even bears litigating again, from grab them by the you-know-what to E. Jean Carroll to every other thing he's done. But he's out there doing the same kind of message the last few days. Let's roll that clip.
Into the rural communities, suburban communities. And, the suburban housewives actually like Donald Trump. You know why? Because I'm the one that's going to keep them safe. They like to say, well, the suburban housewives, I don't know. I think I do great with the suburban housewives because...
Well, I like that he's just in denial.
I do like you got to salute the confidence, even though it's completely not based on any kind of reality, fact, statistics, math, or politics. But I do think we have ended up in an election. I think the Biden team in the beginning thought it'll be about the economy.
Right.
I think the Trump team thought in the beginning it'll be about immigration and crime, and Donald will do his thing. But I think both sides have had to kind of adjust to this now, that I think this really is going to be an election about women at a fundamental level.
Yeah, you fucking think so? Can I curse here? I have to say that, when SB8 got passed in Texas, because we're friends, I can just be as hostile as I want. I said, they're going to fucking overturn Roe. And everyone said, oh no, you're being hysterical. They're never going to overturn it. And I said, no, I really think they're going to overturn Roe. Oh, no. A year later, they overturned Roe. We have pundits like Sarah Flores and a bunch of Republicans who said things like, Roe is baked in. Roe is not going to turn out voters. Voters don't care about Roe. And they were proven wrong. And now what's amazing about banning abortion is that every day abortion is banned, there's another story of a woman who could not get fucking prenatal care because her doctor didn't want to go to jail, right? Told to bleed out in a parking lot. And a 9-year-old girl who gets raped.
Come in when you're septic.
Right. He has to carry her rapist baby. You have, in Louisiana, in this report I read out of Louisiana, the doctors are not seeing women, not all of them, but a lot of them are refusing to see women in the first trimester because of the high rate of miscarriage, because they don't want to be blamed. I mean, these are doctors who are not practicing medicine in the way they are practicing defensive medicine. They don't want to go to jail. They don't want to get fined. They don't want to lose their licenses. And if you look at this, is exactly what led to Roe being so broadly decided in 1973. Was doctors were like, we can't practice medicine like this anymore. We do not need the law in our doctor's offices. And we are seeing, and this is exactly what is happening again. And what's amazing to me is these Republicans, instead of being smart and saying, like, obviously we need to have, we have to have exceptions for the life of the mother, rape and incest. And if you're at all, if anything, if you're at all in danger, we should just have these exceptions, make them broad, keep the women safe. Again, I don't believe in that. But if I were in a political party that wanted to continue to ban abortion, that would be what I would do. But they won't even do that. So we have another Supreme Court case that's coming up in front of the court about about doctors not wanting to do this emergency, abortion thing, where it's, there's a rule that if you have a patient who's about to die, to do an abortion, and because it's emergency medicine, it's a sort of federal law that, you can't let somebody die on your table just because you are a religious zealot. And we're, now that's being argued in front of the Supreme Court. So at every point, Republicans have an opportunity to make this seem less draconian, and they're not taking it.
And they won't take the off ramp. I mean, and look, folks, and I've said this before, I've written about this a lot. There were Democrats and commentators, as you just pointed out, Molly, who were like, "Oh, Roe will never be overturned, and it's fine. It's going to be part of the landscape." And I kept telling my Democratic friends, I'm like, they do exactly what they tell you exactly what they're going to do over and over and over and over again. They tell you exactly. And these guys are now telling you they're taking on IVF. They're going to take out birth control. They're telling you exactly what they'll do unless we stop them. And with that, Molly, I will see you tomorrow when you and I record your fabulous Fast Politics podcast. And we will go on from there.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you.
Bye.
See ya. All right, folks. As always, Molly is just one of my favorite people out there. I wanted to talk about a couple of other quick things tonight before we wrap up. We've got Donald Trump running the 2016 playbook again. And by the way, the MAGA trolls in the chat, God love you, but I'm so sorry about your small penises. I'm so sorry. I feel bad for you. You guys are just such tryhards. It's just so amazing. Anyway, so Donald Trump is running the 2016 playbook again. He is calling immigrants animals. Let's go ahead and roll that clip.
The 22-year-old nursing student in Georgia who was barbarically murdered by an illegal alien animal. The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals. And Nancy Pelosi told me that. She said, please don't use the word animal, sir, when you're talking about these people. I said, I'll use the word animal because that's what they are. I'll never forget my vow to her.
Look, guys, Trump wants this election desperately to be about immigrants and crime. And he wants to merge the two in your heads. They're really not linked in the same way he wants them to be linked. That's why this election has to always stay on target of watching how this guy operates and then taking him off that track again. And one of the things that Trump is doing about immigration right now is he's trying to resurface it with these families who he is saying, "Oh, this is so horrible, and they're all coming here just to murder us." Well, the family of one of the victims, where Trump claims he sat with them and was comforting them, he never called them, he never talked to them, never sat with them. He's so willing to exploit any of these things. It should really tell you a lot. I also want to say Donald Trump had a bad day today. Not only is he missing out on his bond payment, because now it looks like the company that signed the bond doesn't have the cash to pay the bond if he defaults. So that's special. That's going to go into one more round of craziness. He's also, his meme stock that all the MAGAs are like, he's going to make $65 billion. Well, it's down about $3 billion in value, his portfolio, since Monday. The stock is right now being held aloft by a bunch of Redditors from the Donald and some greater fool theory investors who think they're buying a piece of Donald Trump's company. All meme stocks die a horrible death. When this goes, it's going to be a penny stock. If you could short it, I would. I'm not giving you financial advice, but if one was going to short it, one would probably be making a pretty safe bet. We also found out about Truth Social today, or yesterday rather, that you're going to find this totally shocking, people. I know you're going to find this utterly amazing. But when it was in financial dire straits, as it always is, it was bailed out last year. And this is so heartening. This is so heartwarming. Bailed out by Russian oligarchs close to Putin. I can't believe this happened this way. It's just so amazing to see these investors from a faraway land just taking such an interest in a struggling small business way down in Sarasota, Florida. It's touching, really. So on the crazy front, we've got QAnon MAGA weirdo terrorists crashing their cars into FBI buildings. But remember, it's certainly not really a MAGA. It's got to be an Antifa person, right? But it's a MAGA. And I also want to say, look, we are seeing an uptick in the violent rhetoric. We're seeing an uptick in the chaos rhetoric. We're seeing an uptick already in Trump's world of the election will be stolen from me rhetoric. Prepare yourselves now. Get your brains in the right spot, because they are going to use violence again. They will do it. They will do it because they can't do anything else. So before we wrap up tonight, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We had a great crowd tonight. And again, sorry about the small unit MAGA trolls in the chat, folks. They really can't look away. They really can't stop themselves. So I want to say one other thing. We're going to pop a link up in the chat here for the Webby Awards. We have been nominated for a third year in a row for Webby's People's Voice Award for our campaign called America or Trump. It's a series of, I think, 10 ads giving American voters a clear picture of the choices that are coming forward in this election. We would be honored if you guys could go on the Webby Awards, that's webbyawards.com site, vote.webbyawards.com. We'll also put a link in the notes. We are in first place at the moment. We'd love your help to stay there and to get a little further up that chain. I also want to end tonight with wrapping up on a supercut of the Wisconsin rally of the weekend, which is a real preview of where Trump is going. I want to thank everybody for being on the with us on the show tonight. I look forward to seeing you again next time, and we will go from there. Thanks, everybody.
We are here in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Biggest thing is the immigrants.
The border.
The illegals.
It does have kind of a salsa flair to it, a fiesta.
When they stole the election in 2020. Facts.
This is my hat right here. It tells it all.
I took an antibiotic 4 years ago, and it destroyed a lot of my health.
Could I give you my short list for VP? I'd like Don Jr., Tucker, and possibly General Flynn.
That's a heck of a list.
Biden's senile to have bisexual people advertising to get into service now.
But the matador is coming. Trump is the matador.
The Democratic Party can all be charged with treason, along with the President of the United States, and they ought to be hung by a rope as hard as they can hang them.
This is America, for God's sakes.